Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Delon D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week, voters in Turkey set to go to the polls for a second time after no candidate picked up 50% of the vote in the first round. The plight of Palestinian refugees in focus as the United Nations marks the anniversary of the Nakba for the first time in history. And 8 months since the death of Mahsa Amini, the movement against the mandatory hijab in Iran remains alive and well. But first, Turkey's election is headed to a runoff on the 28th of May. Recep Tayyip Erdogan will be going head-to-head with the opposition's Kemal Kilicdaroglu. While the incumbent's in a strong position going into the vote, the opposition isn't giving up hope just yet. Jenny Shin reports.
This port city in southern Turkey still bears the scars of last February's earthquake. But despite the anger of many survivors over the government's handling of the crisis, the polls told a different story. Provinces heavily affected by the quake have renewed their confidence in President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
I'm not happy with the results. I'd have liked our president to win directly. That would have been great.
I want justice and equality for Turkey's future because I have a child. And the situation in our country is not good at the moment.
The opposition had expected to benefit from a weakened Erdogan amid Turkey's ongoing economic crisis. But the incumbent president led comfortably with over 49% ahead of his rival Kemal Kilicdaroglu, who garnered 45%, and thus retains his majority in parliament. But having failed to secure over 50% of the vote for an outright victory, Erdogan will still have to clear the second round of votes scheduled for the 28th of May.
For the second round of the presidential elections, Mr. Erdogan has a great advantage. Not only he is very close to the 50% threshold, but the fact that his alliance got the majority in the parliament gives him some very strong arguments towards winning the second round.
The result is a bitter disappointment for opposition rival Kilicdaroglu. His fate may hang on a third candidate, Sinan Oğan, the ultra-nationalist who emerged as a potential kingmaker after picking up over 5% of the vote.
Now, for the first time in 75 years, the Nakba, or catastrophe in English, was commemorated by the United Nations. For organizers, marking the displacement of Palestinians during the creation of Israel serves as a reminder of the ongoing refugee crisis. France 24 correspondents on the ground in Lebanon filed this report.
Haj Zuhair Hindawi tenderly looks after the weathered and yellowed birth and property certificates, along with a key to an old door. These objects are witnesses to a bygone life in Jaffa, his birth city, which was once located in Palestine, but is now a neighborhood of Tel Aviv. In the midst of the Arab-Israeli conflict and in the aftermath of the establishment of the State of Israel, Haj Zuhair fled his homeland with his family on the 15th of May 1948. Their journey led them to seek refuge in neighboring Lebanon.
No one advised us to stay. They said we'd be back in 15 days. But here we are, 75 years later. I can't do anything about it. It's all over for me.
Born in Lebanon, Samir shares his father's realism. He is under no illusion that they will be able to return anytime soon to the land of their ancestors.
The Nakba is a deep wound that every Palestinian carries inside. Only a return to Palestine can heal it, God willing. We categorically reject any form of Palestinian settlement in Lebanon, and we're working with the Lebanese people to make sure that the Palestinian identity does not fade away.
To protect Palestinian culture and heritage, Mohammed Al-Khatib founded the Memories Museum 18 years ago. It houses over 650 objects belonging to refugees born like him in Palestine.
I have gathered these objects to prove to the world that there were inhabitants on this land. This is our heritage. This is our legacy. If we ignore them, how can we live in the present moment and plan for the future?
Mohammed has vowed to breathe new life into these heirlooms, originating from places that have since disappeared, for many, the sole physical reminders of a past life.
It's been 8 months since Mahsa Amini died while in police custody in Iran. Her death sparked months of anti-government demonstrations, and while the protests have faded, the movement against the mandatory hijab is alive. Iranian women continue to push boundaries. Buttons launched during a 2018 campaign opposing the mandatory hijab are now making a comeback, thanks to the efforts of Jeff Kaufman and Marsha Ross, who directed and produced the 2021 documentary on Iranian human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh. Jeff and Marsha, great to have you with us here on the program. I want to start with you, Jeff. Why have you decided to back this cause?
Well, we both long supported the cause of human rights and women's rights, which are really inseparable. We are drawn to Nasrin Sotoudeh's story because she's a great champion of those causes and of religious minorities and ethnic minorities, which really represents something we believe in both for, obviously, Iran, but for the United States and all around the world.
Now, one of the things the Iranian government seems to be doing is pressuring businesses to sort of enforce the mandatory hijab. Marsha, what are you hearing from people you know on the ground in Iran?
Well, there's so many concerns. I mean, in particular, concerns about what's happening to the girls in the schools. I think that's a huge concern right now. It sort of ebbs and it flows. We get information sometimes things seem very quiet, and then all of a sudden, there's a lot of information coming out. We're very grateful that Farhad Mezmi was released from prison. That was very, very important.
I should just also add that one of the vice presidents of Iran recently said that the mandatory hijab was inseparable from the identity of the Iranian regime. That means the repression of women to them is inseparable from the regime, and that's something that just can't stand.
Can you talk us through your campaign itself? What does it hope to achieve here?
Well, first of all, when Farhad Mezmi, Nasrin and Reza Khandan's great friend, was released from prison, Nasrin wore a button that Farhad and Reza had made that said, "I oppose the mandatory hijab." They'd both been arrested because of that. 10,000 buttons had been confiscated. That button remained. And we thought there was great power in replicating the button and sharing it with people around the world to show that there is solidarity with activists in Iran for democracy and women's rights, but also that an idea like that can't be crushed. We wanted to honor the resilience of those activists.
I watched your documentary, Nasrin, in preparing for this interview, and one of the lines which she said that struck me was, if you succeed in forcing us to wear this half meter of cloth, you will be able to do whatever you want to us. Marsha, do you see the hijab as just the first step for more to come?
I do, because that's just one thing. I think Nasrin talks about it a lot. The hijab just represents something so much bigger than the hijab itself. The idea of forcing women to wear it is about trying to force women to do everything, having total control over them. And if you can do one thing, you could put them back in burqas. You can do all kinds of things to people. You can keep them out of school. You can keep them out of the workplace. And so it takes on a much greater meaning.
And what about what is going on in Iran right now when it comes to the hijab? Because yes, in cities like Tehran, women are seen in public without the mandatory head covering, yet that isn't representative of what is going on in other parts of the country, is it?
Well, one of the things that Nasrin's husband, Reza Khandan, has stressed is that their objection isn't to everyone wearing a hijab, it's to the forced wearing of the hijab, the forced veiling. So they support a right for a woman to choose what she wears, what she thinks, what she does. And so if someone wants to wear a hijab, that's their choice, but it cannot be mandated by the government. And as Marsha says, when they start mandating what you wear, they're really controlling your life and the life of everyone around you.
And where can people get a button from?
First of all, here is an example of the button that is an exact replica of what was made in Iran in 2018. They can go to the website for the Nasrin film. We have a special dedicated page for the I oppose the mandatory hijab button, and perhaps you can roll that chyron and say it, or you can just say it's www.nasrinfilm.com.
Jeff and Marsha, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for your concern.
Having us.
And that's where we leave it for this edition of Middle East Matters. From all of us on team, thank you very much for watching.
When I first came, I needed quite a bit, a few implants and crowns, and in California they quoted me $35,000, and I think I paid about $6,000 or $8,000 here. Most people in the U.S. don't have dental insurance that I run across, have medical insurance, but the dental insurance doesn't cover very much, like $1,000 a year for a crown, or so for something major, it's not that great.
La clínica empecé yo solo, cuando iniciamos por allá en el 1990 me independicé, y de ahí ahorita a la fecha seremos como 60 personas en la clínica, somos 20 doctores, hay 12 unidades, tenemos otra clínica en la parte de abajo del pueblo, y ahí nos dividimos la clientela, ¿no?